Welcome to multiple transformations of parent functions. Let's get started. Now you'll recall that our transformation equation is just a parent function, any parent function, with an a in front of it, an h, and a k. In this case we're looking at cubic because there's a little 3 here, but it works for all of the parent functions. So the a tells us if we have a vertical stretch or compression. Remember, the stretch is if we have a number greater than 1 in front of it. And compression is if we have a fraction or a number between 0 and 1. And then it also tells us if it's reflected. And if we have a negative, then we have a reflected parent function. The h, which is here with the x, the h is always the number with the x, tells us our horizontal shift, how our graph moves from right to left. And don't forget, we always change the sign of our h. And last, the k tells us our vertical shift, how our graph is going to move up and down on the y-axis. And then k for keep the sign of your k. Now last time what we looked at was what happens when we have an h or what happens when we have a k. And what we're going to start doing now is putting them all together. When we have an a, when we have an h, and a k, how it's going to stretch or compress or reflect. And it's also going to move right to left, and it also will move up and down. So let's do an example. So here's a quadratic parent function, y equals x squared, and the parabola, the parent function graph. And here's its transformed equation, y equals negative x minus 3 squared plus 2. So it has an a, it's got a negative 1 in front of it. It has an h, negative 3, and it has a k, a positive 2. So that's what the first thing I'm going to do is write down my a, which is a negative, and if there's nothing in front of it, it's like a negative 1. Our h, which is a negative 3, and remember you change the sign of the h, so now it's positive 3. And then k, which is always the number just at the very end of the equation, and our k is positive 2, and you keep the sign of your k, so it will stay a positive 2. So now let's transform this parent function. Let's move it around. Now the a, the negative, tells us that it's going to reflect. The 1 tells us that it stays the same. There's no stretch or compression, but it does reflect. The h tells us how we move left to right, so we're going to move positive 3 to the right. And then the k tells us we're going to move up 2, because it's a positive 2. So you always start from your key point, which on a quadratic function is 0, 0. And we're going over 3 and then up 2. So there is our new key point, and it's right here. Now we don't want to just start drawing our parent function because remember it's reflected. So now we're going to go this way. So there's our transformed function. We reflected it, we moved over 3, and we went up 2. So let's do one more example. Here's our square root parent function, y equals square root of x. There's the graph. And we want to transform it into y equals square root of x plus 2 minus 4. So our a, as you can see, which is right in front of the parent function, there is nothing there, so it's a 1. So our a is 1. It's not reflected because it's not negative, and it's not stretched or compressed. Our h is the number with the x, and it's a plus 2. And remember, we change the sign of our h, so it becomes negative 2. And then our k is the number at the very end, negative 4. Keep the sign of your k, so it's still negative 4. That means that it's not stretched, compressed, or reflected. We're going to move to the left 2. This is our horizontal shift, negative 2. It's going over here. And then we're going to move down 4. So 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, which is right here. And since it's not stretched or anything, we don't have to worry about it. It looks just like the original parent function, except it's been moved. Now don't forget, you can always check this in the calculator. You can enter your parent function in the calculator and enter the transformed function in the calculator, and you should see exactly what we drew here. So one more time, the transformation equation has the a, tells us if it's vertically stretched, compressed, or reflected. The H is with the X. It tells us how we move left to right, or horizontal shift. It also, you have to change, don't forget that's really important, change the sign of your H. And then the K, the number at the end, tells us our vertical shift, how we move up or down on the graph. And you keep, K for keep, the sign of your K. That's it for Unit 2 Parent Functions. Thanks for watching and see you soon.